Hello everyone and welcome to my video. I am Karas. I draw, paint and create, and today we'll be looking over the drawing and painting process for one of the best Disney princesses, Jasmine, using just whatever materials I felt like using. I'll be going over sketching, line arts, color palette and digitally enhancing the illustration, so stick around to see the final result. Or of course you could just skip until the end, but what would be the point, am I right? Also, I recorded this one with a potato camera for potato people. While I was still experimenting with recording setups, the quality may have suffered a bit, but bear with me. To start, using a recycled paper sketchbook, a woodless Kohinoor pencil and a kneadable eraser that has seen better days. The woodless pencils are amazing for sketching and shading. They have pretty hard tips, perfect for detailing. On the negative side, they tend to blunt my sharpeners and break at the first breeze or when dropped on the floor after rolling away from the table, as pencils tend to do, so be gentle with them. I use the reference for the pose and expression, but I'll be doing the classic Jasmine look. My first contact with this character was in the Aladdin TV series, which aired in the weekends and had me glued to the TV. I remember being amazed of her rich dark hair and was very disappointed when I realized I could never get my hair to look like that. As I grew up, I started to appreciate her no-nonsense attitude, her strengths and bravery, and her awesome pet tiger. Back then, Disney was just starting to add more dimension to the princesses and it was still a bit rusty, but I appreciate Jasmine nonetheless. And remember that one scene when she used her feminine charm to distract Jafar? I mean, the guy could be related to Dr. Doofenshmirtz, that's how unappealing he is. That was a femme fatale move I did not expect from a doe-eyed Disney princess. But back to the drawing. I lightly erased the sketch because the colored pencil has a waxy texture and my liners tend not to work properly because of that. I do the line art now because gouache colors are pretty opaque. And even though I use plenty of water to add transparency, some of the lines will unavoidably be covered. So the darker the line art, the better. Mark Brunet, who is awesome and you should check him out, said once that you should not start coloring until the drawing looks like a piece of art by itself. Looking at his artworks, I tend to trust what he says. I learned so much from this guy you wouldn't believe it. Turning the drawing upside down or looking at it in the mirror helps with seeing the mistakes. It's as if you look at the drawing after a long break. I recommend doing this step before you start working with the liners. At this point, you can still correct any mistakes. The gouache pack is from a Romanian brand, Daco, very accessible and of surprisingly high quality. I usually pick a couple of colors at the beginning and then keep adding as I go along. I start with cerulean blue, then add a bit of viridian green, since it already has a bluish tint to it. Then I use the warmer shade of green. The color tube says it's a pale green, but I don't trust it. It's more of an emerald green. Moving on to prove me right, the tube for the yellow says citron yellow, but it lacks that greenish tint. It's more of a cadmium yellow. A cadmium lemon, if you will. Moving on to just plain old black and Prussian blue, two colors as dark as the void that is my social life. And we're done with the colors for the clothes. Next is skin. I'm using my favorite shade of bricks, burnt sienna, then carmine red and violet. So basically every color in the pack. I ended up adding a yellow ochre later, except for vermilion. Go away vermilion, no one likes you. Wait, so is this really vermilion? Better check with Google. Vermilion. Yeah. Huh? Never mind. I'm using my trusty synthetic fiber Milan medium brush and start to mush colors around. There is some logic to the mixing system, but mostly I just wing it. For the skin, next to the basic shade, I add a bit of red as blush to specific areas, an aspect I talked about in my previous video. Even when working with flat colors, I can't help myself and I vary the colors as much as possible. Mainly because it's fun, but also because I like the way it turns out. Gouache colors are at the border between tempera and watercolors, not as transparent as watercolors and not as opaque as tempera, and I use them as neither. I like using a lot of water at the beginning and adding more and more pigment as I go along. I guess my watercolor training kicks in and I cannot help it. I place soft layers as a base, randomizing and varying the colors as much as possible. It's really amazing to see how many shades you can obtain by just having fun with the mixing. Like for the outfit, using plenty of white, green, yellow and cerulean, I got the prettiest shade of turquoise and the reason for this whole video. I had just bought a new nail polish and I thought I'd be clever if I matched it with a drawing. So there you go, that's a thing you now know. But I mean, just look at that. It looks so good, especially on this craft paper. For shadows, I just add some Prussian blue on the already soaked brush, and for the highlights, I add some yellow to the basic outfit shade. Tip of the day: warm colors for lights and cold colors for shadows. Now that I'm nearly done, I start detailing the face, adding blush, coloring the lips and eyebrows. I like to paint the eyes at the very end because it's the most satisfying part. For a little bit of extra texture and a bit more detailing, I use these Kohinoor soft pastels, blending them with a dry brush. The effect is a blink and you'll miss it kind of thing, but it adds a little bit of depth to the character, a bit more material to look at, such as the yellow glow on the golden accessories and really bright highlights on the skin. I'm also using my best friend since forever, a pastel white gel pen from Uniball. I don't know when to stop when I'm working on an illustration, so this pen is a perfect excuse to keep tinkering. But the highlights on the lips look gorgeous and the rim light make the character pop out from the page, so I guess it's worth it. And for the final step, a simple background of light yellow in the top side of the illustration. Since Jasmine's hair is so dark, it makes for a nice contrast, using the flat brush I used for blending the soft pastel. After scanning, I bring the painting over to Photoshop for some editing, but I guess any software would work. I crop it and adjust the levels, then using a textured brush, I go over some finer points which I couldn't or wouldn't do on paper. I'm contouring some details, clean up areas where I went over the line art, and add some more line art where necessary, in order to obtain a crisp, finished result. While working on this step, I noticed that the hands look unfinished, so I'm adding a semi-transparent veil, something she would use while dancing, for example. Time to accentuate the rim light some more and add a bit more depth to the shadows and force myself to step away from it because I could keep modifying and working on it forever. And it's complete. Jasmine, in her borderline not safe for work or children glory. I had tons of fun working on this piece, got to experiment with colors and textures, mix different materials, and I couldn't be happier with the result. I mean, I could. It can always get better, but I mean, for now, it's pretty good. Let me know what you think in the comments and what other characters you'd like to see in a future video. Thank you for watching and stay creative.